Hey everyone, and welcome back to part two with Mr. Samuel Leeds, where we're going to dive into some hot topics and all to do with property. So stick around. Samuel, so property, you have become what we can say really is the biggest UK educator.
Yeah.
How has that happened? Like you are known in property by pretty much everyone. What's it been like to get to that stage?
It's just sort of organically happened, really. I mean, when I started training people, because I never intended to be a trainer. When I got into property when I was 17 years old. Sort of bought my first house in 2009. I didn't set my training company up until 2016, back end of 2016. So it was like an after thing, and it really started because so many people were just asking me organically about property, and there's a lot of people that do YouTube videos now and do articles, but back when I started teaching, that wasn't really the case. And people would just ask me. I set up a company called Training Kings, which was like a non-for-profit organisation, which helped because I'm Christian, and being in the church and also being somebody that wanted to be wealthy was almost like a little bit of an oxymoron. And there was a lot of misconceptions around it from my upbringing, my background, which was if you want to be a good person and you want to be a Christian, then you need to be humble, not make much money. And I wanted to help people from within my community, within my church and stuff, because I was able to do so much good with the money. We set up the Samuel Leeds Foundation. I was digging wells in rural parts of Africa, Zambia. We're building schools in Uganda. And I thought, actually, if I can find good people from within the church that have got entrepreneurial gifts and help them with that, then they can also go and do good things and make the world a better place. And I wanted to help people, and that's why I set up Training Kings, which kind of then turned from me helping Christians within business to people just saying, what property should we buy?
Yeah.
Just about asking me. And then that was when I registered the training company in 2016. So yeah, I mean, in terms of being the biggest and all that, I'm not super competitive. I'm not like trying to be that top spot and saying, I'm the biggest, I'm the best. But I think we just have more students than, more successful students certainly than any other training company. And just sort of organic, really.
It's really interesting. You have a very interesting story, the way that you started out and to where you are now, and it's happened over years. So what I want this episode to be about, and for all the viewers, is I don't want to go over the same questions. I know you've had the same questions. I want this to be more so about value that people can take.
Yeah.
So this is going to be more of a constructive part two, and there are a lot of good things that I think people can learn from and take away from the experiences that you've had. And one of those is a lot of judgment. You've gone through good and bad, and you have a big social media presence on Instagram, YouTube, and your business. And there are a lot of pros to take from that. And I want to focus more on the positives. You've survived through all of it. How has that improved? How has that improved Samuel? Like, how has that thickened your skin? Because you've come out on the other side.
Yeah, I think when you're on number one, when you're sort of like the top, people will scrutinize you more. So if you're just a property trainer or you're just a YouTuber, everyone just watches. If they like the video, they like the video. If they don't like the video, they don't like the video. They unsubscribe. Whereas when you are number one, people then try and pull you down or scrutinize you. So I think one of the things I've had to learn is to make sure that my company is 100% completely squeaky clean, above board in every way. All our contracts, our insurances, everything we do is completely above reproach. I think that's probably been because when I got into property training, it was just organic. Like, yeah, man, I'm helping people, I'm training people. But then when the media start coming around and trying to find stories and who's this guy, I think it just made me a little bit more careful of what I say. I also used to put everything, every time I'd buy a property, I'd talk about it on YouTube. I used to have a tradition every year where I'd say, right, these are all the houses that I bought this year. I bought 12 houses. These are the ones, and this is what happened. But then my tenants start contacting me saying, oh man, there's people outside the house asking us questions, and so I kind of was like, whoa, maybe I need to just be a little bit more private in some areas as well, because not for my sake, but to protect my my tenants and my staff and customers. And so Yeah, it was a bit of a shock. Young guy, I was like 26 and 27 and suddenly massive attention. So it was a little bit crazy. But yeah, definitely, man, I could write a book on the lessons for sure.
Do you think you would? I mean, I think there's a lot to take from it. And like I say, I'm not to sit here to go over old stories. I want to focus more on, what you've come through and the lessons that can be learned from that. Is that being in the public eye, and like you said, I fully understand that the media will try and catch every single angle. Do you also think that when it comes to property, there are a lot of quick people to jump on the training sort of bandwagon?
Yeah.
Therefore, anyone that's higher and above, they've got to pull those down to kind of bring up their. Is that something that you're having to battle against? Also, up and coming mentors and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I don't pay loads of attention to what people have to say about me outside of my customers. What are my customers and what are my staff saying and what's my family and my church and my friends. But in terms of, people will take shots at me for no reason. Don't know them. Clearly they've got a competitive business. And what do I think of that? I think it's a little bit silly, because that's not the way I became successful. I think to get to the top, you want to collaborate your way to the top. You can't build your own building by trying to knock other people's down. But humans are sometimes interested. One of the things I think I did learn through the press was that people are fickle, because if you're getting loads of positive attention on the TV and on the media and on the radio, then people will be like, oh man, hey mate, oh, can we do something? You're amazing. But then if you then got a bit of bad press, and they're saying, even if it's not terrible, if it's just something, the press are taking shots at you, then suddenly those people that you thought were your mates, it's like, So I think, going through bad times, whether that be financially or whether that be from bad press, it kind of makes you realise who your actual friends are, because a true friend will, even if you are, losing all your money, you're getting bad stories written about you that are unfair. No matter what crap is going on, a true friend knows you for you, and it doesn't matter what you've got and what people are saying. It matters who you are. So, definitely learned who my friends were through some of the rough times as well, which I think is important. Knowing who you can trust. I even rehired some of the people that stood with me through some of the bad times in like 2019. Now are working with me. They're paid a lot. They're in the really.
So showing their value.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you think through those hard times it's obviously made you a stronger person? There's no doubt that that's happened, because I can't see how it wouldn't. You would learn from all of that. Is that for those watching, and what I'll do is I'll incorporate some of the questions, and again I'm going to try and keep this in that constructive value way, is that there are a lot of trainers out there up and coming, so it's almost a minefield of who you listen to now. And obviously accessibility through social media, YouTube, it's always who do I listen to and who's genuine. So one thing we obviously mentioned earlier is that a question which I'll incorporate is, there's a lot of trainers that when they stand up on stage, they say they started in debt,
right?
Hundreds of thousands, which almost makes someone else's situation financially look a little bit smaller. What do you think on that kind of the setup of how educators set themselves up?
I think it's just if they're saying it and it's not true, and they're saying it for some reason to try and make more sales or whatever, then I think then it's hugely immoral. But if it's true and it's just their story and they're just like, hey, look, I started in loads of debt, then it's part of their story. I mean, I didn't start with loads of debt, but I did start with a little bit of paper round money, which you might say is the same thing. It's like a started from nothing type story, but that's my story. So that's just it. So if I'm sharing my story, I'm not going to change it depending on who I'm talking to. I struggled with being a Christian in my church. That's my story. Maybe some people can't relate to that. Maybe some people don't want to do business with me because I am a Christian, but that's just my story. So, yeah, I'm sure there's people out there that say a lot of nonsense.
Yeah, I think also actions speak louder than words. I always look for anyone that I'm working with or that we collaborate with. You always look for sort of actions speak louder than words to actually see it happening. And obviously that's kind of proof is in the pudding. So how important is it for you to sort of, obviously, again, because you're in the public eye, I imagine that you're always chasing your tail and always having to keep up with content and what you're doing. How do you find that sort of almost documenting everything that you're doing? Because like you said earlier, if you almost go off the radar, it then questions the whole business.
Yeah, I didn't go off the radar. I'm just a little bit more specific in what information I'll give now and what I'll hold back. Also, most of my content now, I'm documenting my students' successes as well, because I think from a training perspective, we're talking about having a training business now. If I was going to invest in someone's training, the first thing I'd want to know is who's previously done it, what were their results, not just how successful are you of course it's really important to be, if you're training someone in anything, you need to have shown that you've been successful in that first. But that's really important. But what's also equally as important is, well, who else have you trained? Because if I want to invest in you as a trainer, I need to see that you're a good trainer. I need to see that you've been able to train up people successfully. So I think those are the two important. But then, with training, I think that there's a lot of trainers that do it for a quick buck and they go in with the wrong mentality. Which I think if you're going to be a trainer, you should be going in training somebody. Number one, you should have made enough money yourself. Like, it can't be about the money. You can't be doing it for the money. Secondly, you need to make sure that you've got all the insurances, complaints procedures, compliance. There's a lot of legislation. People know when you're a deal sourcer, people know to package and sell deals, you need to be registered with the Ombudsman. There's a lot of compliance that goes with it. People know that. But with training, it's even more so. There's so much compliance and legislation and stuff that you should, but people just completely ignore. And just like, I've set up a training business, and people are, okay. But it's like, whoa, you've been in the industry for 2 years, you've never been through a recession. You've not got any compliance or insurances. I think it's scary, because if they ended up having a student that lost money and then that person sued them, they'd be done.
So do you think, so this leads on to nicely to a question, do you think companies should have, and this is a question that I got asked, like a vetting process even for new mentors and mentors that are set up to say, because it's unregulated.
I think so.
I deal in regulated and unregulated, and it's so loose in between. It's such a vanilla, it's such a fine line. So do you think they ever will bring in, okay, you're going to start an educational company, we just need to go through a vetting process so that you're protected also, but also those that come on board?
Yeah, I think yes. I think it 100% should be a regulated industry. However, it already is regulated to a point, but people just don't know that it is. Mm-hmm. If you're giving financial advice, if you're teaching people and training, then you need to be insured for a start.
This is the vanilla part. Yeah, this is that on the fence. Yeah.
But it is regulated.
Yeah.
It's not heavily regulated, but there is regulation. There's regulation in most businesses, but like trading standards, does that apply to property trainers? Yes.
Yeah.
But people that are setting up training companies, because they don't need any qualification, or they're just not aware of the regulation. So what's going to happen is they're going to end up just getting burned and finding out the hard way. Or, I mean, most trainers don't last a year anyway. Most people that start property training after a year or two, they've gone. But if they got sued, I think it would be pretty devastating, because if you're training somebody, you are obligated to make sure that you're giving them guidance, not advice. You've got to understand the difference between guidance and advice. I'm sure you do as someone that's in finance. So there's so much to it, but I think people underestimate it.
I understand that it's really difficult, especially for someone who, again, because of your presence, you are at the front. There's no backing away from it now. So going forward, it can only get tied to a restrictor, in terms of making sure everything's aligned, is that I find it, especially looking from the outside, because I come from a neutral background, really. There's no for or against. And, when someone decides to jump into property and they think that they need that helping hand, is that I'm a big believer in money management and really knowing your own numbers, and I think that's a responsibility on us, the individuals. But of course, like we say, it's crazy that we're not teaching in school finance. We know that there's a motive to keep those numbers low. We know that. So I see both sides, that it's down to an educational company to also have their vetting process, and then, but also as the individual, we're responsible for our own finances.
You're talking about now vetting the students.
So like for someone who's going to commit to any mentor, is that I understand that there's a very fine line to determine when do you put your hand up and say no, but
Yeah.
also you need
Do
to
you know
money
what?
manage yourself.
It's a great question, and this is one that does take more thought, and it is much more complex, because if you're going to be turning students away, then where does that become vetting versus discrimination?
Yeah.
You see?
It's a hard one, yeah, because I understand. And again, it's looking at that. It's taking a step back and actually going the reality of it. Is someone is like, no, I want to do the training. I can do it. And at that point, what is it discrimination? Are you can have problems can lead from that as well. I imagine there's people that would cause problems.
Oh, yeah. I had a guy recently. He said to me that he wanted to do a full-blown Property Investors Academy, which is like one-on-one mentoring for a whole year, really advanced. Didn't have much money and had just lost his job. And I didn't say no to him, but I was just like, I really, really think that you should just come down to some of our free training and read some books. And he was like a little bit offended by that. But I'm thinking, I can't say to someone, he'd not done any, he'd just been watching my YouTube videos. The reason that we have all of the free courses there and is so people can come and get experience first, get to know each other. So, of course, there's common sense, which is sometimes just like, I don't think that's the right product for you. But I think if someone's saying to me, no, I want to do this, like when I started and I was 17 years old and I was investing on courses, I'm glad they didn't turn me away, because they could have easily said, ADHD, dyslexia, failed in school, I'm not taking his paper and money off him for this course.
Yeah.
But the fact that they did take, but most businesses will. If you go into a shop or want to buy a car or anything, if you've got the money and are saying, I want this, they're not going to say no. I mean, most businesses have got, so it's a very, very tricky one. And I think to legislate that or to vet students in that way, I think would be near impossible. What should be vetted, though, are the actual trainers themselves to make sure that their selling is ethical. See, I get accused, people say, hard sell. And it's like, okay, or I've even been accused in the past of pressure selling. And it's like, well, actually, pressure selling is illegal. So how you sell is already regulated. I can't pressure sell. If I pressure sold, I'd be done.
I think sometimes you can't win. I think you need to, for those of, some people, I totally agree with what you said earlier. When the negative is bad, people will jump that bandwagon keyboard warrior. I really agree with that. And when it's going positive and everyone's singing, they want to then be back with you. So the fact that you rewarded people who stuck with you is the right thing to do, because I totally get that. People are, when it's going good, they want to sing. When it's not. So, and with the hard sell, I mean, I went to buy a car once and the guy was just on me the whole time. So you're in a business that has huge marketing, is everywhere, is a really hot topic, is interesting. People want to get into property. So I do understand that almost sometimes you can't win. But what I want to do now is I want to talk about some of the questions. I'm incorporate some of my thoughts is no money down deal. So I want to share my thoughts. I personally don't see there being a genuine no money down deal. And I know that was some of the questions that come up. So I'll join that as well in that question. Is there such thing as not a penny? Taking a lease option out of it. I know that's a bit of a trick one, but in regards to saying, I want to get my first buy-to-let, I'm a family man, got a little bit of savings.
All right, well, let me give you an example. There was a guy called Trevor who found a piece of land. The piece of land he negotiated to buy it for 330 grand. He also got quotes, builders quotes, and it had planning permission for 6 houses, £500,000 for 6 houses. So all in, he did 830 grand. Now, Trevor didn't have any money. Trevor didn't have the money for it. The end value was 1.35 million. So there's £500,000 clean profit in this deal. Trevor didn't have the money. Trevor came to me and said, Samuel, can you fund it? And can we do a joint venture? I looked at the deal and said yes. I put in 830 grand plus legal costs, everything. And Trevor took approximately 33% of the profits. So for Trevor, is that a no money down deal?
Okay, so question here. So did that come on, because this could touch into something else, did that come down to Trevor's likability and as a person? Because this is also something that people might not think about. So I want to spark that thought process is, did you get on with Trevor? So Trevor, you had time for Trevor. Was he an aspiring entrepreneur that you said, I'm going to give you a chance? Is that what happened there?
I invested really because the deal was good. Right. So what Trevor brought to the table was the deal. The deal. So I think, and if you're going to do a no money down deal, you might need some sweat equity, right? You might. There's 3 types of currencies. There's money, and then there's time, and then there's expertise. Those are the three currencies. Is it possible to do a no money down deal? I don't think you can argue that it is impossible because it happens all the time. But you do need the expertise, whether that be the likability to close the deal, to find the deal. You also might need time. So when I'm telling people you don't need big deposits to buy property, it's like, well, no, you don't. If you can have the expertise all the time, you need something. If you've got no time, no knowledge, no likability, no expertise, no money, then you're doomed. Then it's like, okay, well, now I need to work on maybe getting the expertise. Maybe I need to work on the likability. Maybe I need to check out charisma on command and start getting some, right? So, but do you need money? Well, you clearly don't, because thousands of deals are done every year in this country from people that are investing in property without using money. So that I think it's quite a straightforward answer.
I think also, just off the back of that, I do think you need a really high caliber network in almost, you funded that project, but for an average person who hasn't gone out their way to network, get themselves in London, get themselves around the right people. So I would say definitely there's opportunities available. You really have to be backed by some, I would definitely say some financially secure individuals, high net worth investors. And I would agree actually that if you're bringing the right deal and you've got the likability and you've got the drive, I think, you could get backed by someone. But certainly from what I've seen, for someone looking to pick up their first buy to let, they have no track record. I think you would still need...
I mean, you could start as well with a smaller deal. You wouldn't start with a piece of land where you're building 6 houses and need almost £1 million. You could start with, I found a little tiny 50 grand auction property, and it needs 10 grand on it, and the end value is 90 grand. What do you think? Push it to your family and friends, and you start with something smaller. But I definitely would agree that you do need some expertise. It's not, if it was a case of just, you can buy houses with no money, people can just walk into the estate agents and go, I'll have that one, and that one. No, it's not like that. But if you build the skills, build the network, it is possible. And I think the reason I say that, people say, I'm selling people dreams. I don't remember selling Trevor a dream. He came to me with a dream. I wrote the check.
Yeah.
I didn't sell him a dream. Right? I wrote the check. So it's like, actually, what I'm trying to do is really give hope to people that might think, I've only got 10 grand. I'm going to have to save up. The average house right now is £276,000. A deposit is like 50, 60 grand plus stamp duty plus... Why is the average age 34 years old to buy a house? It's because people think they've got to save, stop drinking Starbucks. Well, that was, we've talked about that earlier. Stop drinking Starbucks, cancel Netflix and save. But it's going to take you 10 years to save a deposit. And even after you've saved the deposit, after 10 years, house prices will have probably doubled. So it's this never-ending, so there must be another way.
So this is my thing. So going back to the, if people are sitting here thinking, well, that's my situation. I can't save quick enough. My money management's brilliant, but I'm not earning, the salary's not there. This is my thing, is that there are other businesses, or if you've got a passion to start something, cash flow. I always use this example. If you love coffee, go buy a lovely teardrop trailer or horse trailer, convert it, cash flow, and pay, go to wedding businesses.
Right.
Is that there are other ways to make money. And when I think of property, I think of growing that net worth, pump and dump, put it in. Property doesn't overly excite me, but I know many people are wanting to get into it. And certainly money management and your network and really knowing numbers. I mean, how important for people, people watching this thinking, I tell you what, I want to ask this question. I know so many people that go away. What's your thoughts on this? I have my own thoughts. Do you go and get yourself out sourcing the properties to then find the buyer, or do you build the network, the buyers, the investors, and then you go, right, 10, 20 investors, what do you need? And I'll go and find it.
You find the buyers.
Right. Okay.
100%.
I'm great. Yeah, cool.
100%. You ask people, you put yourself in rooms where there are buyers, maybe an auction where there's a bunch of people that lost out on the deal, or maybe a property networking event, and you say, what are you looking for? I'm a deal finder. If I could find something that fit that criteria, would you be interested? Excellent. Can I take your card? Okay. And then once you've got 10, 20, 30 people's cards, you then know what you need to go look for. Because otherwise, if you're trying to find a house without a buyer, even if you find a house, you're then you're going to fall out with the agent because you can't sell it in time. It's a recipe for disaster.
So you heard it there first, is that don't go out, view properties just for the photos and Instagram, and then you've got no one to sell it. Because something I'm really focused on is always return on time invested. So what I'm doing with my time, how am I leveraging it? And I always see that where someone starts the sourcing, and obviously that's a big avenue where people start is sourcing, trying to cash flow, but at the same time, don't waste your time taking photos of properties. You've got no one to sell it to.
We don't let our guys do that. People might do it who follow me, YouTube or whatever, but if they're actually trained, they don't do that.
Yeah.
Because it's stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, they might go along to an auction or an open house just for a bit of experience to see what's there, but to book a load of viewings and waste time when you've not got the finance for it, without any investors, without knowing any knowledge of what you're doing, it's just wasting time. And it's the best way to fall out of estate agents. And that's the reason why when good deal sourcers go to an estate agent and say, I'm actually a deal sourcer, the estate agent goes, we don't work with deal sourcers, because they've been burned from bad deal sources, which is one of the reasons why I have a training company, to make sure that people are actually doing it properly.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, when it comes to the education, I'm almost going to have to ask you to put your educational company aside for this question.
Yeah, okay.
I'm self-taught in everything I've done. So like I said to you off camera, I fell into what I do organically, and everything else has been books and mainly audio.
Yeah.
So I've got like 2 months, 7 days, huge amount of hours of listening, and I've all been self-taught. For those that don't really know whether they need a mentor or whether they can learn it, because there's so many free resources, even checking out your YouTube and other people's YouTube as well, is there are so many resources. At what point what do you think someone needs to decide when they go, okay, I need to pay for mentoring, or actually the world has given me enough free resources? Because they are out there, and to me it comes down to your effort, determination, commitment and discipline. Get off your arse and learn it.
Well, I think, taking my education company aside, as you said, do I invest in mentors? Absolutely, all the time. I just spent £2,000 just this morning because I wanted to spend a little bit.
Coffee?
Not on a coffee. No, I just wanted to spend half a day with a planning consultant, and I was just like, you're the best. I want to pick your brain, show you some of our sites. I spent £200,000 getting some mentoring from Grant Cardone. So I'm a massive believer in not trying to reinvent the wheel. If somebody's done it before, actually sitting with somebody and saying, you can either pay for, if you're self-taught, you'll pay for mistakes, which is fine, but you can pay for your education instead, and it's a lot cheaper. So I'm a massive believer. And I also think that property investing is an industry. It's a profession. It's a business. If you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or an electrician you're going to go and get trained. You're going to go to college. You're going to go to university. You're going to get the skills. Property investors, they don't need that qualification, but I think they still need the training. Mm-hmm. So to think that you can just step in to a lucrative profession, because you can lose a lot of money as well in business. So I'm not saying, you're an idiot, you should have done this, that, and the other. Everyone's different. But for me personally, I think that, and trying to find stuff online for free, you can't. If you're searching a lot of stuff online, like, are the councils lax in this area? What's it going to say?
Yeah.
You can't. You just need to find someone that's doing it and building in that area and go, talk to me about the councils. How can I? And also networking. And I think it's absolutely amazing.
I think if you're not going to pay for mentoring and you're not in a position to, I think networking is the second best thing, because some of the people that I'm surrounded with, I mean, we're talking really wealthy people. I'm blessed to say that I wouldn't say they teach me, but I can sit in a room, I can call them up at any point and I can learn for absolutely nothing. And I do agree that your speed and the process you go through is a lot quicker when you have someone saying, jump now, stop.
Yeah.
Which leads me on to another question is, do you have a mentor that is, sometimes it's a bit daunting. I know this was one of the other questions, is sometimes it's daunting to see someone who's got X amount of net worth and is so far ahead to having someone who's a couple of hurdles ahead of them. So how do you find that?
I think that it's a good question. I think that you want to find someone that you want to be like. You want to find someone that you aspire to be in their position. The problem with finding someone that's 6 months ahead is sometimes it can be like blind leading the blind. Because if let's say someone's trying to teach property and they just secured their first 3 buy-to-lets and they're then trying to mentor somebody how to do it, someone can go, oh, well, they're only a few steps ahead. I can relate to that person. But that person might crush in the next recession because they've not put good systems and exit strategies in place. So for me, I would probably find somebody that is very, very successful, but at the same time, you don't want to. When I'm teaching property, I could very easily go, I'm not really doing rent to rents and some of the smaller stuff anymore. I'm not going to teach you. I'm not going to, and become unrelatable, which is one of the reasons why I still do the smaller deals. and I still do financial freedom challenges and start again from scratch, because I don't want to be that mentor that's like, 15 years ahead, makes millions of pounds, and people just think, oh man, I'm a bit out of touch, which is why I continue to do the small deals, which I think is important. But yeah, I think you just want to find somebody that's the best in their field. Like, I didn't find a planning consultant that was just a little bit more experienced than I am. I'm like, no, I'm going to find a planning consultant that's the best in the country and sit with them, because they've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. They've got a depth of knowledge, as long as they're also a good teacher. That's my take on it.
No, amazing points. I mean, it's all been golden. As we sort of come to a finish, what would be your, let's say, top 3 tips for someone wanting to start in property, is a 9-to-5 guy or girl, and has a little bit of savings, but they do want to get into property? What are the realistic steps from here?
I'd say practically work on recycling your money, because saving and dumping, unless you are a extremely successful business where you're making millions of pounds, if you're having to save up a deposit every time you want to buy a house, it's too slow. You need to work on how to recycle your money, namely putting it into a property, adding value, pulling your money out. So I'd say figure out how to do that. I'd say number 2, I'd say get around good people that are doing it. If you're hanging around successful property investors, then it's going to be so much easier for you to become successful, rather than all your friends being like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? So get around good people. And I'd say number 3 is believe. Visualize yourself doing it. And this is sometimes, laughed at or underrated, which is the law of attraction and the power of, belief. I think that it's so important. If you believe something, you'll find the evidence to back it up. If you believe, if watching this video, if someone at the beginning of this interview thought, I hate Samuel Leeds, he's a dick, you'll be looking for the, did you see the way he looked at him that time? Right. And you'll back up your own beliefs. If you believe that you're a loser, then you'll pick up the phone and the estate agent will say, oh, sorry, join the queue, there's too many investors. And you'll think, oh, man.
Be a shepherd, not a sheep.
Yeah, be a shepherd, not a sheep. And also, you will find the evidence to back up your belief. So you may as well believe that it's possible. You may as well believe that you can do it. And if you do that alongside getting good people around you and learning the fundamentals of how to recycle your money, put a good plan together, then I think that will pretty much set you up to win.
There were some amazing points. I've loved part 1, part 2, and that was the whole purpose of this podcast. And it's been a pleasure to have you on, is to take the value away from your experiences into where you are now. Because the reality is, Sam, you wouldn't be where you are if you're not running successful businesses. So there is a lot to take away. I hope all the watchers took a huge amount. Samuel, if people want to reach out or get in touch, where can they go?
Probably just subscribe to my YouTube channel, Samuel Leeds, or search me on Google.
Awesome. Well, all the links will be in the description below. Everyone who has watched so far, thanks so much, and we'll see you all very soon.